Somehow, it didn't feel right. Just a few days ago, the Wild Jade was besieged by an army of raiders, pirates and deadly machines. They smashed through the walls and line after line of defenders. Buildings were toppled and burned, streets decorated with wrecks and corpses. The air was tainted with a smell of smoke and death. And yet, there was no trace of a battle, or at least nowhere near what he would have imagined. The skill of the Earthcast and their drones ensured that all the damage was cleared away. Ruins had been removed and buildings rebuilt at a mind-boggling pace. Wrecks were either transported away for study or cut into pieces and hauled off to be melted down into usable materials. By the end of the third day, it was hard to spot even a drop of blood. The only thing that remained was a fleeting scent of a battle. It was barely noticeable. The humans probably didn't sense it at all. But Reka was a Tau, and evolution had provided him with a sensitive breathing slit. His sense of smell rivaled that of the hounds humans kept as pets and companions. And so things that went unnoticed by them were all too clear to him. He could still sense it, and the smell kept the memories of a frantic defense vivid in his mind's eye. The faces of his dead comrades kept appearing in the corner of his vision, standing, smiling, waving, trying to get his attention only to disappear the moment he tried to look at them. Yolwa Wu was making faces at him, mocking him from beyond the veil. He could almost hear his laughter, full of energy and life. Lunsu, tenacious, looked at him sternly, yet not unkindly, probably disappointed over one of the pranks he had pulled. Her form flickered between that of a living warrior and the corpse he found at the end of a corridor. Black spots where blaster fire had ended her life still smoked. Gan'alm, steel axe, stood tall and proud, seemingly unbothered by his own death. His casual smile, half hidden behind a mask of seriousness, offered little comfort. Kunas, agile, could always be found on top of something, as if showing off her agility one last time. She looked down at him with pity. She knew she was dead, and she knew how deeply it pained him. And then there was Conan, the worthy sword, their trainer, his first mentor. He always appeared in reflections, always standing behind strong Strike, wearing the kind of smile of a veteran who knew they had done their duty. A silent guardian watching over his most promising student, even in death. Strong Strike was looking at the reflection of his mentor when the scarred face of Zunjida appeared behind him. In the place of his once missing eye, there was a new one, a cloned replacement for the eye he had lost in the battle. Reka turned around and gave him a sad smile. "Good to see you back," he greeted him, making the sign of joyful reunion. "Likewise, brother." Vengeful Spear extended a hand, and Reka clasped it in greeting, pleased to note that his friend's voice wasn't as raspy as before. "I see the operation was a success," Reka noted. "How is the new eye?" "Working properly," Zunjida assured him. The explosion caused mostly surface damage. There was no need to deep nerve reconstruction. Normally I would have need to wait a week or two before getting a new eye. It seems luck was on my side. He made the sign of a lucky star. Reka nodded and tilted his head. I see you decided to keep your scars, he stated. Yes, Zunjida responded, making the sign of a truth, carved in stone. They are proof of what we endured, and a potent reminder of what we have lost. Reka nodded and made the sign of a sage. None of us can forget our first battle. He took a deep breath. Come, the ceremony is about to begin. The rest of the squad will be happy to see you back. Zunjida nodded and followed after him as he moved toward the rest of her team, though it wasn't easy. Part of the spaceport had been transformed into a temporary parade ground, where all the survivors of a battle, and many newcomers besides, were gathering en masse. A great platform had been raised not far from the command spire, with banners of the Tau Empire fluttering in the wind. A pair of crisis suits stood at attention, each holding an additional banner. Cameras were everywhere, both of the watercast and journalists from the wider galaxy. Reka could have sworn he spotted Celine talking with members of her crew somewhere in the distance. It was clear that all the recordings of the ceremony would be spread far and wide, all according to the designs of the watercast and their propaganda machine. As a fire warrior, Truestrike wasn't a fan of the underhanded tactics of the watercast, but he couldn't deny that they knew how to create a spectacle. He couldn't understand exactly how, but he was sure that everything they were doing was for the greater good. Seems we are all here. The voice of Veldenet cut through the noise of the gathered warriors. Reka turned to see his comrade, the shortest of the squad, yet one seen as a potential leader in the future. She smiled at him, the human expression lighting up her face, warming his heart and driving the shadows of his dead friends from his sight. She stood proudly and confidently before them, with the rest of the squad nearby. Her new cybernetic left arm, painted dark grey, made her stand out from the crowd. She made the sign of a happy reunion, mechanical fingers keeping pace with those of flesh. Reka was impressed and couldn't hide it. Most people needed weeks to get used to their cybernetics, but the Golden Guardian acted as if she had used them for years. Her eyes turned to Zunjida and made the sign of a broken blade that can still cut. He answered with the sign of a reforged blade. Reborn through fire, by the grace of a Aun'Va. Erakao said in almost pious tone, making the sign of a fire cast. It's good to see you, brother. Likewise. Zunjida reached out and they grasped each other's arms. How is your new eye treating you? Getting used to it. Shadowhunter answered with a sigh, making the sign of a buzzing insect. I didn't optimize the interface properly just yet. I'm experimenting. He added, making the sign of a hunter stalking birds. I can zoom quite far with this thing and see in a far wider spectrum of light than usual. Not to mention the HUD. It's all bit distracting. Do you need the help of the Earthcast? A sakurai asked with a tilt of his head, the deep scar there clearly visible. They should be able to tone it down a bit. No, they tone it down enough. This configuration has everything I need. I just need to get used to it. Erakau waved his hand dismissively. If you say so. Perceptive shrugged before turning to Zunjida with a smile. Good to see you, by the way. Glad the operation was successful. It would be a shame if you didn't make it to the ceremony. In your dreams, brother. Vengeful Spear chuckled, reaching out to the next member of the squad. Hey, Esksa. Hey, Zunjida. Good to have you back. The young woman gave him a slight smile. It's good that we are all back together. Or most of us, anyway. The dark outlines of their dead comrades lurked in the shadows around them. Reka could almost hear them, coming closer and closer, their cold hands reaching out, and all of us, Esksa, all of us. Oshivesa spoke in a measured, kind tone, making the sign of a great campfire. We are all here, whether in flesh or only spirit. Do not dismiss the weight of their memory, sister. We are the Firecast. We carry their fire. All of us, living or dead, are the burning truth of a Aun'Va, and all darkness flees before it. And just like that, all the dark shadows faded in an instant. The words of the unseen helper breaking the fog that clouded Reka's mind. He turned toward her, surprised by how radiant she looked, how beautiful she was, despite her scars. He bowed his head, making the sign of enlightenment. You speak with the wisdom of the Aun, Oshivesa, he said with a smile. She blushed at that, stopping herself from showing a human smile, though he noticed a small wrinkle on her forehead. She was happy and speechless. The rest of the squad chuckled at her reaction, which only made her blush more. Quiet, all of you! She hissed, looking even more embarrassed. Of course, teacher! How else could we hear the next piece of your great wisdom? Erakau chuckled. I will poke your remaining eye out, she warned. Oh, please do. I am but a blind man before a sage, such as you, anyway. Shadowhunter continued, grinning from ear to ear. Now all of them were laughing. Even Oshivesa couldn't stop herself. It had been a few days since they last joked around like that. Then a gong sounded, its deep rumble carrying across the field. Golden Guardian turned toward the platform, seeing movement. Line up, everyone, it's starting. They did so, joining countless others, survivors of the battle and newcomers alike. The colors of the Furios and many other septs were visible in the crowd, as well as groups of Tau allies, Gwevesa, Krut, Tarelian, Galg, and several other species that had arrived with a new fleet. Reka focused on the distant platform, seeing a figure take position there. Just as he wondered whether he would recognize the speaker, a giant hologram came to life above the platform. It was full color and high resolution, the highest grade he had ever witnessed, and on a scale he had never expected. The face that greeted him was that of Commander Truestrike. She stood proud and tall, the perfect image of what a commander of a Firecast should be. She looked over the gathered force and spoke.
Warriors, siblings of fire and blood, my comrades in arms, the price we had to pay to save this city was high, but we endured it.
She stated in a thunderous tone.
We have been displaced into this new galaxy, and its inhabitants put us through a trial of fire, and we have not been found wanting.
A quiet murmur of approval passed through the crowd. Truestrike, however, was far from finished.
Yet, though we endured this trial, the blood price was high. And despite our best efforts, many of the civilians we swore to protect were captured and enslaved by those who would rather drown the stars in darkness than follow the light of the Tova.
Another murmur passed through the crowd, this one filled with anger. Rekka let out something akin to a low growl. The very thought of enslaved civilians, igniting a fire of true rage within him.
In the previous galaxy, when the Drakari stole our people, there was little hope they could be saved. Often, those monsters committed such crimes against our kin that death was the only mercy we could offer them.
Koka closed her eyes for a moment.
But not this time, for we know not only the name and the face of our enemy, we know where they took our people.
A murmur of hopeful excitement rippled through the crowd. Warriors, one and all, eager to learn who was to blame for the attack. And as if reading their minds, two faces appeared alongside Truestrike, above the platform. That of a crimson reptilian warlord and a prideful human tyrant.
Ravix the Red led the assault of Furious Ned, and when forced to flee, he escaped to one who holds his loyalty, Governor Bishad Khun of Ruin, a system not too distant from the Commonwealth's borders.
Truestrike announced.
Even now, they keep our kin in shackles, intending to trade them like cattle.
A primal sound of rage and eager bloodlust filled the air as the enemies of the greater good were burned into the memories of all present. Koka allowed that moment of absolute hatred to linger before continuing.
Soon, we shall liberate them, and the world they claim as their own while keeping it in chains.
She declared.
But for that, we will need warriors. As such, it is my great honor and pleasure to announce that every trainee who took part in the Battle of Furious Ned is officially elevated to the rank of Shasla, with many of you receiving recommendations that may lead to quicker promotion in the future.
Rekka turned to look at his comrades, who returned his gaze with the same expression. They had done it. They had passed the trial of fire, and their achievement had been recognized. They were no longer cadets, no longer Shasal. They were Shasla, fire warriors. Aun'Va! A cheer rose from the crowd as every former cadet voiced their joy and eager resolve. Koka raised a hand, and in a moment all voices went silent.
Furthermore, I have been given the honor of forming and leading a new contingent, an Avenger contingent. It shall be formed from the survivors of the battle and reinforced by the veterans from Furious Set.
She announced.
All newly promoted Shasla are to become part of this new unit, which will stand at the vanguard of the liberation, of all those enslaved during the battle.
Another cheer rose from the crowd. Truestrike couldn't help but grin. Not only had they been promoted, but they had also been given a new assignment, and it was the most righteous one he could imagine. They would take the fight back to the enemy. He was just wondering how his squad would be reformed and what unit type they would be assigned to when the most shocking words left Koka's mouth.
These orders came from the Ethereal Supreme, Aun'Va himself.
The mere mention of a great Aun's name silenced the entire crowd. Suddenly, the sound of hovering drones became the loudest thing in the spaceport. Then, to the mounting shock of all present, Koka, stone serious, spoke the words none had expected to hear.
And he wishes for you to hear his words.
In an instant, the hologram of Commander Truestrike dissolved and transformed into the image of a great Aun'Va himself. All present held their breath, eyes widening in shock. Reka was no different. His mind feeling as if it were racing down a mountain and forced to stand still at the same time. Aun'Va rarely spoke publicly these days. His age was catching up with him, and there were whispers that the Master of Undying Spirit would soon name his successor, before it was too late. And yet, as he saw him now, Reka thought those whispers nothing more than falsehoods and misguided worry. For despite the deep lines of age marking his face and his frail-looking body, there was still undeniable power and authority shining in Aun'Va's eyes. Though present only as a hologram and not in person, an aura of absolute authority fell over everyone like a wave of artificial gravity, almost forcing them to kneel at the mere sight of a legendary figure. A moment passed as Aun'Va looked over his charges. Reka's heart skipped a beat as the ethereal's gaze lingered on him for a fraction of a second.
Fellow servants of Aun'Va,
he began, his voice like the song of a star.
The great displacement has proven to be a trial of our resolve, of Tau and all of our allies. A trial in which this new, strange galaxy tested whether we would adapt to this new reality or break beneath its power.
He nodded his face.
And, as the young Chasseur Koka has already said, we endured.
No cheers rose from the crowd, for none dared interrupt the Ethereal Supreme.
Before this anomalous event and its trial, our Commonwealth aimed to begin the fourth sphere of expansion, to reach the stars beyond our local clusters, to punch through the blockades of a hateful Imperium of Man.
He stated calmly.
After the Great Displacement, our grand plans were put on hold, uncertain of what awaited us. But now we know. His voice grew more powerful. There are worlds open for colonization near our borders. Worlds enslaved and abused by tyrants and warlords. Civilizations eager to join us on the one path toward the true utopia. Which is why I can now announce that the fourth sphere of expansion will recommence, and you, warriors who have passed the trial of fire on Furious Net, will be the vanguard of the new sphere of expansion.
Reka felt his legs trembling. This was too much. Him, a part of a vanguard of a new sphere of expansion? It was beyond anything he had ever hoped for.
As I speak to you, representatives of a Commonwealth are delivering an ultimatum to Rune and its leaders. A graceful offer. Submit before our judgment, or suffer the wrath of a Commonwealth.
He raised an open hand.
4 days. That is what I have given them. 4 days to submit. 4 days to acknowledge our wisdom and the superiority of our way.
He closed his eyes.
Many of my caste believe they will refuse, that they will not find the wisdom to bow their heads and show contrition before the Aun'Va. Yet, I still hold a fragile hope that they will, for it is the wisdom of the one path that the good of the many must outweigh the foolish ambitions of a few. Either way, you will be ready, either to secure peace as we pass judgment, or to deliver our verdict in a storm of fire.
The great Aun'Va, the ethereal supreme, looked upon them all with pride, raising both hands as if to lift them by his will alone. You are the storm, he declared. Say it out loud, warriors of the Commonwealth. Say it so all the galaxy may hear your resolve. And, without hesitation, thousands of voices began to chant. We are the storm. We are the storm. We are the storm. Reka roared into the sky alongside countless others. Their voices unified into one deafening thunder. The vote has passed, Mas Amida announced, striking the floor of a platform with his staff. The anti-slavery and anti-piracy treaties between the Tau Commonwealth and the Galactic Republic are officially recognized. Applause erupted through the chamber, thousands of senators voicing their approval. Padme clapped as well, though less enthusiastically. "You do not seem too pleased," Jar Jar noted, tilting his head. "The vote has passed, much faster than anyone expected." Padme huffed, unsure how to put her thoughts into words. I'm skeptical, Jar Jar, she said after a moment, regarding the true intentions of the Tau. They wanted to fight slavery and piracy. What else would they wanten? Jar Jar countered. Or so they claim, Jar Jar, Bail Organa said, shaking his head. And while I support the idea behind the treaty, and I'm glad the discussion regarding it was so short, I do have doubts about their true intentions. And you aren't the only one, Senator Organa. Corde, one of Padme's aides, added, looking at the datapad. There is much skepticism around the Commonwealth. It seems the Trade Federation suspects the Tau of attacking one of their convoys in the region. Some non-Republic worlds fear that the Tau may seek to expand and conquer them. They fear they big and wang zappers, Jar Jar dismissed with a wave of his hand. And what they could do with those weapons, Organa added, narrowing his eyes as he looked towards the Tau platform. Look, seems Silent Tide has something to say, and who is that with her? Padme turned to look in the same direction. True enough, there was someone there who was not a Tau. It was an older human. She couldn't identify him from this distance, though he did seem familiar. Honorable Senators of the Galactic Republic, I would like to express my gratitude for such overwhelming support for the signing of both treaties between our countries. These treaties shall herald a new era of freedom and security in the Outer Rim, where the Republic and the Commonwealth will work together for the greater good of all. Silent Tide announced, with a wide smile. Padme frowned as the chamber once more filled with applause. Greater good of all. The Tau were relentless in promoting their ideology to the wider galaxy, their so-called One Path. She was just about to ask Bail what he thought when Silent Tide continued. And the signing couldn't come at a better time, for the investigation into the attack on Furious Ned is now complete. We have identified those responsible for the raid, she announced. A murmur of surprise passed through the chamber. Investigation? Organa asked. I was under the impression that Ravax was responsible. That's what I heard as well, but it seems the Tau have someone else in mind, Corde whispered, as all eyes focused on Silent Tide. While Ravax the Red and his reavers led the attack, the true mastermind behind it was Bisat Kong, Governor of Rune, she declared. A wave of surprised gasps and murmurs passed through the chamber. Some senators rose in protest, others in outrage. Shouts of slander and baseless accusations filled the chamber, yet all quickly fell silent as Masamida struck the floor with his staff. Order! We will have order in the Senate! He roared, overwhelming all voices. Before anyone could rise to challenge him, Chief Palpatine himself stood from his seat. This is a grave accusation, Ambassador Niatel, he said calmly. I trust the Commonwealth has proof. Indeed we do, Silent Tide nodded. We have the confession of Ravax the Red's right-hand man, Sazak. A hologram of a dark-scaled Trandoshan appeared by her side. Ravax doesn't raid people without a plan or a reason. And
he doesn't act without reaching an agreement with Kong. The governor wanted slaves and technology from the planet, both of which would sell well and gain him even more power and influence.
The old warrior looked into the camera.
Kong approved the attack on Furious Ned, and some of his soldiers joined the raid, eager to take slaves for their master.
The recording ended and Silent Tide continued. We also have the confessions of those soldiers who serve Kong, as well as logs from captured ships, showing that Ravak's forces launched their attack from Rune. She announced. It didn't take long for Senator Esu Rotsino, representing the Abrion sector, to rise and challenge. The energetic woman glared at the Tau with blazing eyes.
So, all you have as proof are confessions of criminals and recordings? Recordings that can be tampered with?
She accused. Many rose in support of her words.
Such absurd accusations have no place here!
Someone shouted. Silent Tide, unmoved by the reaction, shook her head and tapped her holographic keyboard. Notification pings echoed through the Senate. We are sending you all relevant data and recordings of confessions. Your specialists can confirm that not one recording was tampered with, she stated calmly. More importantly, we have equally clear recordings of Commonwealth citizens being enslaved on Rune. Another recording played, this one sending a shockwave of disgust and terror through the chamber. Slaves were being dragged from the transports, locked in chains, beaten and abused by their captors. The fury of the slavers was unleashed upon those who could not defend themselves. Humans, Tau, Tarelians, Galg, even savage Kroot, all were pulled from the ships and herded into a building.
This proves nothing!
Esu Rotsino shouted.
This could have been recorded anywhere!
It was recorded on Rune. A new voice cut her off. An old, silver-haired man rose from his seat, standing beside Silent Tide. Padme recognized him. Kalin Pax, one of the representatives of the Rune Liberation Front. Opposition operatives who live in fear of Kong's brutal dictatorial regime recorded these scenes and many more besides, he announced. They secured data on how many slaves have been captured, where they are held, and the price Kong and his ilk intend to sell them for. Another series of pings echoed through the chamber. Padme glanced at Corda, who gave her a small nod. At first glance, everything appeared genuine. Not that it stopped the Senator of Abrion. So all you have are confessions of criminals and the words of the opposition? She challenged, though her confidence now seemed to falter. Governor Bisat Kong is an elected official of an independent world. Such accusations cannot be accepted by the Senate. That's not surprising, for they never were. Pax roared, his voice carrying the weight of a rancor. Rotsino fell silent, stunned by the old man's outburst. Even Padme instinctively recoiled, unprepared for the raw power of his voice. She knew Pax, of course, and his plight. She was one of the few senators who supported his cause. She knew him as a patient, quiet, defeated man. But that was not the man who now spoke before the Senate. This man seemed reforged into a statue made of Beskar. The pent-up frustration of years erupted in every syllable of his voice. I have been begging the Senate to act. I have brought entire libraries worth of proof showing Bysat Kong's abuse of Rune people. For almost a decade, I pleaded our cause. I begged the Senate and the Jedi Order alike to save the Rune and its people, and I have been ignored again and again. His eyes blazed with fire so intense one might have thought he wished to burn every senator with his gaze alone. But no more! Kong overestimated his power. He struck at the Commonwealth and its people. The Commonwealth, unlike this decrepit republic, will not stand idle. The Rune Liberation Front not only stands in support of the Commonwealth, but officially requests their aid in ensuring the Tyrant of Rune faces the consequences of his crimes. And just as the senators felt the full weight of Pax's fury, they were silenced as Silent Tide spoke next. And the Commonwealth agreed, she announced. By the anonymous decree of Ethereal Supreme, the Master of the Undying Spirit, the Great Aun'Va, the Ethereal Council, and the High Elemental Council of the Commonwealth, and under the principles of a greater good, we issue this ultimatum, openly, lawfully, and before the eyes of the Republic and the galaxy. Governor Bysat Kong of Rune is hereby declared personally accountable for the raid upon Furious Ned. To avert further conflict and unnecessary loss of life, the Tau Commonwealth demands following without condition or delay: that Governor Kong surrender himself into Commonwealth custody to stand before the judgment of the Ethereals. That all slaves held upon Rune be released immediately, without exception, whether they are citizens of the Tau Commonwealth or subjects of the Republic, or any other beings forced into bondage. That all military forces loyal to Governor Kong lay down their arms, stand down from planetary defense, and submit to Commonwealth's authority. Upon compliance, the Tau Commonwealth will enact a temporary occupation of Rune, not as annexation, but as a stabilizing measure. Civil administration will be transferred under the Tau Commonwealth and the Galactic Republic supervision to the Rune Liberation Front. They shall be charged with the forming of provisional government, dismantling the structure of tyranny, and reorganizing planetary authority in accordance with lawful self-determination. The Tau Commonwealth will withdraw its forces once a stable government is established. Silent Tide looked away from the text of the ultimatum, still shining in blue holographic light before her. Many senators were shocked, taken completely aback by such brazen demands. Governor Kong is granted 4 standard days to comply. Should he refuse? Should he hide behind shields, armies, fleets or titles? Know this. Her voice was calm, factual. The military might of the Commonwealth is already in motion. Rune will be liberated, one way or another. We regret the suffering that will follow such refusal, but we will not permit tyrants and slavers to prey upon the helpless without answer. She looked around the chamber. Let this Senate understand, this is not a declaration of war, for war was declared upon us when Kong sent his Crimson Reavers to strike at our people. This is how this war will end, either with acceptance of our demands, or with our forces smashing the tyrant regime in a single, decisive blow. A murmur of dissent started to rise from the senators. Accusations of expansionism and questioning of legality of such actions. Yet, Silent Tide continued, undeterred by the voice of the opposition. For the victims of Furious Net, for the pain of the enslaved and abused, for the greater good. A wave of murmurs transformed into an avalanche that passed through the chamber as senators across the galaxy struggled to comprehend what they just heard. Some were voicing their support, calling for decisive action against slavers. Others roared about legality of such military action or respecting sovereignty of independent system. It was pure chaos, and the reason behind it was simple. None of them were ready for something like this. None of them had expected this, not from the Tau, who so often spoke of diplomacy and peaceful solutions. Few had ever taken their threats of war seriously. After all, words were cheap in the Senate. But this, an ultimatum of this kind, it was binding, and more began to realize that the Tau weren't making idle threats. One of them was Padme. With every paragraph of the ultimatum, she felt her blood turn to ice. She felt cold. Memories of the Battle of Naboo flashed before her eyes. War and bloodshed. Innocent civilians falling victim to crossfire. Yet, at the same time, the image of enslaved civilians reignited an old fire within her. The same resolve that had driven her 5 years ago, when she returned to her homeworld, weapon in hand, ready to take it by force, before the Senate finished its never-ending debates. She turned and met the eyes of Bail Organa, who was looking up from his datapad, clearly unhappy. Mon Mothma asked us to meet her, he said. She wants to stop the Tau from taking military action. Padme winced. I don't think that's possible. Probably not, but it is our duty to seek a peaceful solution. He stood up. Will you join me? Padme needed only a moment to decide. She turned to Jar Jar and her aide. Jar Jar, Corda, please stay here and record all arguments of importance. I'm sure a new debate will start any moment now, and I want to know the general opinion of the Senate. I will go with Bail, she instructed. Do not so worry, Padme. We shall observe everything important, Jar Jar assured her. Go, Senator. You can count on us, Corda added. Padme nodded and joined Bail as they left the Senate chamber, just as the debate began anew. Voices denouncing and supporting the Tau clashed with such intensity that one could almost see sparks flying in every direction. So consumed by the fiery discussion were they that none but a chosen few noticed the malicious grin spreading across Sheev Palpatine's face. The small, shining hologram of Silent Tide was the only source of light in the cramped dungeon beneath Town Toon City, the capital of Rune and the heart of Kong's regime. Twi'leks, dirty and malnourished, huddled around the flickering blue glow. A sickly girl listened to the words of a strange blue-skinned alien before turning her head toward her father. Dark shadows beneath his eyes, now slightly receding. Eyes shining with something she couldn't quite recognize. What does it mean, Daddy? She asked, coughing after a moment. Her father knelt, drawing her into a hug, though his gaze remained fixed on the small figure, the recording of the ultimatum replaying. "Hope, my dear Ninza," he said, a small spark of light flickering in his eyes. "It means hope." And that was episode 13, everyone. It turns out that attacking Tau does have consequences. The aftermath of Battle of Furious Ned is already fusing with prelude to the Battle of Rune. It won't happen overnight. I want there to be a proper build-up before the first shots are fired, so you will have to wait for a bit. But don't worry, I will try my best to keep you entertained with shorts and other videos. The Battle of Rune is to be far bigger than Battle of Furious Ned, meaning I will require funding for new art pieces, and sadly most of the art budget ran out dry. So I ask you to go to Ko-fi and donate to the art budget. The amazing art pieces you see in the series were created thanks to your support. It's thanks to you I can commission actual artists rather than use AI-generated images. You don't need to donate much. Even a single dollar can help. In Poland we have an old saying: grain by grain the measure fills up. I have big plans for Battle of Rune and Battle of Scarif. I would love to give you something more than just text and my voice, but visual spectacle of things to come as well. So please, pretty please, do visit Ko-fi. It will help a lot in making this series even better. The link to Ko-fi in the comment below the video. Now, in other news, I started organizing your homebrews you sent to me for Season 3. There were 14 positions in the end. I didn't read through them all just yet. I will need a week at least to figure out how to plan out Season 3 with some changes to my initial plans. Especially since the homebrews aren't that well spread out based on the category, or downright have something outside the 3 categories I put in place. Season 3 will most likely have 7 episodes, 2 homebrews each. That's my current view on things at least. Unsure if some homebrews won't get disqualified. Still, I'm quite happy with the amount of fanart delivered to me, so at least I won't need to use AI art generator to provide some visualization of an idea. Going back to the matter of the episode, I once again tip my hat to Tia Boba, also known as Luffy, for taking the role of Commander Truestrike once more. I am truly grateful for your continuous contributions to this series. And of course, the last matter, Q&A. You know the rules! 1 question per person, Q&A on top of a comment, ask whatever you like below. And while you are at it, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and ring-ding that bell. With all that, I believe that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, my dear viewers and listeners, remember, wherever you are, whatever you do, try to enjoy yourself while you can. I wish you most critical day. Ta-ta!